If you're struggling to work on your project, you're not alone. Many indies and solo devs especially struggle with this problem. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about tips I have to stay motivated that I personally use to stay motivated on my own projects, on this YouTube channel, and just generally stay motivated. Hey, Chris here from LlamAcademy, here to help you.
Who, me?
Yes, you! Make your game dev dreams become a reality by helping you stay motivated to finish that project. Motivation's a little bit tricky because it's kind of a feeling, right? It's sometimes hard to identify where it's coming from, and sometimes your feelings might just change because the wind blows in a different direction. So before we dive too deep into what are these tips, let's talk about what is motivation, how does it work, and then we'll get into those tips. That way we're on the same language space. Motivation is a feeling or an emotion that is why we're doing something. That's critically important because if we don't have that strong why are we doing it, it's very easy to become unmotivated. So there's two main ways when people are talking about motivation. There's two main types. There's extrinsic motivation, which comes from the outside. Most people are motivated to go to their job because they are going to pay them, and that's the extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation, on the other hand, comes from within you. So you're motivated to do this thing because you're going to solve this problem and you're going to get a deep sense of satisfaction from figuring out how to do that thing. Generally speaking, the intrinsic motivators are a much stronger why than those extrinsic ones. That's why they have to pay a bunch of money for you to go to work, because if they paid you almost nothing, you probably wouldn't go. However, that's also why a lot of times indies and solo devs will work on a project for hours and hours and months and weeks and years to complete a game that maybe won't get them any money whatsoever, because they're intrinsically motivated to complete that game. Now that hopefully we're talking the same language about what is motivation and how does it work, we can easily jump into the first tip. You should like what you're working on. It's incredibly challenging to do something day after day after day that you just really don't like to do. Personally, when there's something like that that's happening, I've had that experience at my job before, that just what I was working on I really didn't want to do, and there was like this sense of dread that came over me, and it was really hard to stay motivated to go to work even though they were paying me to do it. I don't even know if it's possible to feel intrinsically motivated to do something you really just hate doing. So if you have the opportunity and the availability to choose what you're working on, if it's a project, if it's a piece of the project, if you have that ability to choose and you're like, I really don't like this one, I do like this one, choose the one that you do like. And I think you'll find yourself to be a lot more motivated to work on that, even if there are portions of that thing you don't like to do. When you like the thing as a whole, it's much easier to work through the smaller parts that you don't like because you like the overall thing. And don't forget, the Unity Asset Store Black Friday sale is going on right now. If you're watching this when this first comes out, there's a bunch of assets on sale, up to 70% off. So head over there, check it out, see if any of those assets will add value to your game. I've got an affiliate link in the description and a card on the screen. Tip number 2, scope the work to be something realistic if you can. If you're a solo dev or you're a small indie team and you get to choose the projects you're working on, scope that to be something that's actually something you or your team can complete in a reasonable time frame. A lot of people, when they first get into game development, myself included, say, I want to make this game. And it's like a very big game that's way too big for you to be able to reasonably do yourself. And that gets really hard to stay motivated throughout because you can never really see the light at the end of the tunnel. My first game was a multiplayer first-person hide-and-seek game that I did complete. I got it released after 2.5 years, and it was not very good, so I don't recommend you play it because it was my first game. Through a lot of that time, it was kind of challenging to keep pushing through and working on some of the stuff, and I ended up cutting some corners working on it because there was too much stuff to do because I chose too large of a scope of a game. It's significantly easier to stay motivated when, let's say, I'm choosing something that reasonably I can get done in 3 months. As I'm working each day on this thing, I can see the concrete steps I'm taking to get closer to the end. And while it's true for a very large scale game as well, when that ending point is 2.5, 3 years from now, it's kind of easy to feel like the sense of hopelessness that, oh, I'm never going to finish this game. 2.5 years is too long, or you don't even know how long it's going to take. You can't see the end. So if you can choose the scope of your game, scope it down to something reasonable for you and your team. And I think all of you and your team will find it a lot more easy to stay motivated to actually bring that game to completion. That brings me to tip 3, which is don't overwork yourself. It's incredibly common, especially if you are motivated because you've chosen a project that's the right size that you really like to work on. You have tip 1 and 2 down already. If you start working 70, 80, 90 hours a week on this thing, you're going to burn yourself out very easily. Personally, if I'm doing like way too much of this other stuff, then I'm not spending time with my family. I'm not doing other things that bring me enjoyment, and just don't feel very fulfilled in those areas of my life, which makes it then harder to focus on this stuff because I end up not liking what I'm doing anymore, which then kills the first one. And if I don't like what I'm doing, I'm not motivated to keep working on the thing that I'm supposed to be working on. So make sure you do take some time to yourself. Make sure you are spending time with your family, your friends. Make sure you're doing other things that bring you enjoyment in your life. Don't only make everything about work all the time. I feel like I have to say this on this part too, is that's not to say be lazy and don't work on your game and make excuses to not work on it. You still need to put the time and effort into your game to get it done, but don't make it be the only thing that you ever do for weeks and months on end. You still need to be motivated, so you still need to work on it, but you shouldn't overwork yourself to the point where you're not doing anything else. Tip number 4, gain knowledge, learn something new about what you're working on. Something that's really common is we won't want to do something, we'll not like to do it, and we won't learn anything about it, and then it's really hard to achieve that thing. Something I see really commonly is people will say, oh, I don't know how to write code, and they will copy paste tutorial code, and they find it really challenging and impossible to do anything coding related, which then makes it hard to do anything when you need to do coding because you don't know anything about it, you don't know how it works, anything like that. If you take the time to learn about whatever it is, the thing that you need to do, at least for me, there's some sense of satisfaction about learning, hey, I know how to do this thing now, I figured it out, I used resources online, I watched a tutorial, and I figured out how does this thing work. Once I understand kind of how that works, it makes it a lot easier to work on that thing, and I might find out I don't hate doing it. So take some time, learn about whatever it is that you're trying to work on, be it sound design, coding, level design, animation, whatever the thing is that you need to work on. Learn about the basics of that thing so you can effectively do it, and I find that makes it a lot easier to work on. And tip number 5, take care of your health. I know when getting not very much sleep, I'm not eating right, and I'm not exercising, I feel extremely unmotivated. This isn't a health and fitness channel, so I'm not going to go into, oh, you need to eat this, exercise this much, sleep this much. Experiment with what works best for you. Do that. If I'm not sleeping well or feeling sick, anything like that, I'm more likely to go, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and sleep. Or, hey, yeah, I'm not going to work on this right now. I'm going to hang out and play this game instead of working on whatever I need to be working on. I find when I'm getting all 3 of those in the right amounts, that works for me. I'm very motivated. I can get up, do whatever I need to do, and just feel like I'm ready and excited to work on all of those things. If you got value out of this video, go ahead and like and subscribe to help the channel grow, reach more people, and add value to more people. This new video is posted every tutorial Tuesday. And if you want to help support this channel, you can go to patreon.com/LlamAcademy, get your name up here on the screen, get a voice shout out starting at the awesome tier, and some other cool perks at the tremendous and the phenomenal tier. Speaking of the phenomenal tier, I have Andrew Bowen and Andrew Albright as phenomenal supporters, and at the awesome tier, there's Gerald Anderson, Autumn K, Matt Parkin, Ivan, and Rulin. Thank you all for your support. I am so grateful.